Welcome back to How the Pros Do It Sunday. In the last episode, I had cut all of my line for Nomad, and we learned about links and line types. In this episode, I will be installing a lot of that new fresh line on Nomad. But first, I need to do two things. I need to get the line that I had pulled spliced by a professional rigger so that it can hold the sails with the full strength of the line. We'll also be learning from Steven in this episode, our featured pro today, about how to properly use the old line that's on our boat and to run in the fresh new line without making a mess or losing it in the mast. So with all that said, let's find Steven. Yo, what's
How's
up?
it going?
Good, man. Doing well.
Ready to do this thing?
Yeah. So what's on the docket for what we're trying to get here?
I guess we gotta get to the boat and we will figure out which halyard we're gonna replace. Do we actually know which one he spliced off the top of your head?
No.
Okay, we'll figure that out, and then we'll figure out which slot to pull it through, and then we'll figure out which line it is, and get it stitched together and get it pulled through the mast. So I just need to grab a needle and some twine, and you gotta grab the halyard.
So now with Steven's mission directive in place, I need to go find one of the professional riggers over here to throw this splice in and see if I can shoot a little footage over his shoulder to get a little behind the scenes look of how the sausage is made here. Long before engines, before electricity, before winches and buttons, sailors trusted their lives to rope. Splicing lines is one of the oldest skills at sea. Not a knot, but a splice, a permanent joining, a commitment made by hand. For as long as humans have crossed water, Egyptian reed boats, Viking longships, square-rigged tall ships, rope has been the quiet backbone of survival. And sailors have learned early on that knots weaken rope, but splices become the rope. A good splice doesn't fight the fibers, it listens to them. In the age of hemp and manila, every line aboard was laid by hand, 3 strands twisted together with intention. Sailors learned to open those strands up, to tuck them back into themselves, and to create an eye stronger than any knot could ever be. No manuals, no YouTube, just past hands and memory. A young deckhand learned by watching an old sailor. An old sailor learned because someone trusted him with a blade and a length of line and said, "Don't rush it." Splicing wasn't decoration, it was life and death for these sailors. Anchor rods were spliced from chain to rope so shock loads wouldn't tear the vessel apart. Dock lines were eye-spliced to cleats so ship could ride out storms without chafe or failure. Standing rigging, running rigging, cargo lifts, everything depended on the quiet confidence of those fibers holding together. And when synthetic ropes arrived, nylon and Dacron and Spectra, Dyneema, the tools changed, but the soul of it didn't. It still has to be done by hand. It's still often measured by feel. It's half art and half science. And it has one simple question that it asks: will you trust your life to this splice? Today, splicing remains one of the last places of modern sailboats where technology stops and seamanship begins. There's no shortcuts, no automation, just a rigger, a blade, a few tools, and a lot of patience. I'm really grateful for the yacht rigger and the people here who are able to do these splices by hand and to give our boat such strength out on the water so we don't have to just rely on some kind of a knot or a bowline. And I'm definitely glad it's not some mass manufactured thing. I can't imagine that there's a lot of people this day and age, especially at Alex's, own age, that are going into rigging. It's really quite a dying art form. So I'm super grateful for Alex and for the team here, and that there's access to quality products being put together in such a way that we can rely on it on our boats. So with the line now spliced, it's time to hop over and get Steven over on Nomad and have him show us how to properly run this line as an end for end.
Today I am going to be showing Ryan how to safely end for end pull a new halyard through his mast to replace one of the old ones. One of the struggles we have right now is figuring out what is what, because everything is so faded that we actually don't know. You've seen in previous videos which line is which. Soon, that's not going to be the case. So we're just trying to figure out what the main halyard's tied to the back end of the boom there. So I'm pulling on different lines. Just trying to figure out what. Oh, there it is.
Found it.
Cool. All right, let's do this. So step one was what we just did. We figured out that this is the operating tail end of the halyard. Step two is going to be taking out awesome, nice new halyard and flaking it out on the deck, with the end on deck being, in this case, after the mast, because it's the main halyard, and we're going to be pulling it up and through the aft side of the mast and down out the front. So I'm going to flake this on deck right here. So when you flake it, you definitely want to flake it with your shackle end down, because we're going to be pulling the other tail through. So I'm going to flake everything down on top of itself, with the end that we're pulling through first being the last thing put down. All right, so we have the halyard nicely flaked out, and we have our end ready to go into the mast. Remember, you're going to be pulling the unfinished end, or the end that doesn't have the shackle, up and through. And so one of the first things we're actually going to have to do is to cut the shackle off the end of the existing old main halyard, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. What I'm doing is I want to cut this right here, because I want a clean end that I can butt this new one up against, and I obviously can't do that to this knot where everything's tied up. So real quick cheat, just some electrical tape.
Bam.
Okay, clean end. So now we are going to do the trick where we make these two one piece. So a quick tip for what not to do is, a lot of the time people will use a messenger string, which is fine to do if you attach it properly, but a lot of the time they'll want to pull the old one out with a piece of string and just lay the piece of string alongside the old halyard, and then tape the piece of string along and around it, and ends up making it bigger. And what that does is it often results in it jamming up in the sheave box up there, the pulley on top of the mast. And then what you end up doing is pulling too hard and it breaks free, and then you lose the halyard inside the mast, and then you have a whole mess and you call a rigger. This is how we like to do it in the rigging world, at least in my rigging world. What we're going to do is, this is a needle and some twine, nice long piece. I like to double it up just so I don't have to worry about losing the end, so it's one long loop. And I'm going to start passing the needle straight through the end of the line, not the very end, but half an inch from the end. And I'm going to do just an initial, what I like to call like a lock stitch. I'm just going to go right through it 3 times completely, just so that I don't pull it all the way through and lose it. All right, so you can use a pair of pliers if you struggle to pull it through, but now I have a nice tight end. I'm not going to lose this. Now you may have, if you order line from a rigger, sometimes we'll put a Flemish loop in the end of this. For this video, we specifically didn't, because we wanted to show you what to do if you're just butting 2 pieces of line together that aren't spliced. The Flemish loop is a small eye in the end designed for this, but in this case we don't have one, and it's perfectly fine. This is going to be completely safe. Now I'm going to stitch these two together, and I'm basically going to be making a bundle loop that goes through both pieces of line. So I'm going to pass it right through the end there. This is a nice burned end, so it's not going to pull through. So we're here now, and these are going to butt together, and now I'm going to continue the loop and pass it right through this line. And we're going to do a couple more passes. I'm going to go through each one once more, so we have a tripled or even a quadrupled loop. And now when we're done, we're just going to be cutting this, so we don't have to worry too much. Now, so this is 4 passes. What I like to do to end it off is, so I don't lose this tail, I do a couple again of these lock stitches, just once through the line and back. And then out of old habit, I always give it a good pull test. Like, this is not going to part, and it's no increase in diameter. So we're going to cut off these 2 ends right now. And that's actually good. I even need to trim these tails. I left them pretty short, but that's not going to interfere. All right, so we are now ready. We have our 2 ends stitched together the right way. So this tail is going to come out on the mast end, and the shackle end is going to be left dangling here behind the mast, ready to pull the sail up. So now that I've got it stitched, I'm going to walk forward up to the mast here and start pulling, and make sure this doesn't tangle until it comes out the other end.
Stephen makes a joke right here about this is a historic moment on Nomad, because it's been at least 12 years since running rigging has touched this boat that is new. So pulling this line out that's been there for so long, it's got not just dust, but it's got like mold and like spores on it. And it is really, really crunchy, nasty line. Steven's showing off right there how smooth the shivs are, which is insane. How well everything works on a boat that's 40 years old is, it makes me feel so fortunate. It's such a special thing, but every boat has their challenges. It's just that Nomad seems to be really particularly tank-like in so many ways.
Okay, so success, guys. We got the line through the mast. Now I'm just going to get my knife out again and cut one side of that loop. And the beauty of the system is I literally just pull it out. Sometimes there's a few straggler strands here. Nothing left, no evidence in the new line. That's why I do my lock stitches in the old line when starting. But it's now all done and I can't wait to see more.
All right, Steven, the master rigger, said to run this line backwards like he just showed us and then go through that whip there. But I think I'm going to be okay as long as I cut this swollen side off. And then way up the mast up there, if I'm pulling that down and out, it shouldn't jam on anything. I should do it like the pro told me to do it. I definitely should. But I don't have messenger line. So I could go borrow some, but I think this is going to work. So yeah, let's just do this and see what happens. Oh, look at that. So now he was talking earlier about blemishes. So he had showed us putting this through 2 lines and end for ending them. I'm still going to end for end, but so you guys could see what he was talking about earlier, this is a flemish. So the yacht rigger did this. And effectively, the core is pulled out, and then this is the cover of the line, and the line is pulled over and ran through. It has an exit down here. It's cut. It's a process. But basically, there's just no core inside of here. And then this ends up just being the cover, the jacket only. So I'll be able to go through this and then inside this rope and end it that way. It's a little easier. So here is where I decide to go ahead and attempt running this line in kind of a risky way, given all the swollen nature of it up and through my mast. If it gets jammed in there, it could be a real pain. But I've always been pretty comfortable taking risk in life. So being that I don't have any messenger on me and I think the direction of travel is going to work in my favor, I go ahead and attempt pulling it through the mast. It was a little freaky a few times, but lo and behold, it did work. But of course, Steven was right, and the expert advice that he gave me, the right way to do it would have been to just go and get messenger line and make sure that you do it in such a way as to not cause a huge problem later. Right after that, I learned another lesson that I didn't pay attention to, and that's that, remember earlier how Steven was flaking the rope, the line, down onto the boat so that whenever we pull it through, it just nicely comes off and up into through the shiv box at the top of the mast? Well, I forgot the flaking step, and I get all tangled up and create a whole mess out of that. The final step here is that I have to pull a line through this clutch, and it gets a little weird. So this is so stupid. I'm sure Steven's gonna laugh. I couldn't get the line through the clutch, and then I tried to string a whip, and it didn't work. So instead, I used a Dunkin' Donut straw. And then I put a whip on the end of the Dunkin' Donut straw, so I can then pull the line through the clutch. And here's my, do it like the, this is so dumb. It worked though. All right. I can't help myself. I really should have edited this part out. It's not that interesting, but it was so therapeutic to take all this old, toasty, rusted, crusty line and throw it off of Nomad. It's getting dust in my eyes. It puts out like a green dust everywhere. It's just, there was something that was incredibly freeing about getting this old stuff out and getting all this new Southern rope ran all back in Nomad. I mean, it's fresh, it's clean. Now it's just time to paint and do some furling lines and just a few other things. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode. If you would like, comment, subscribe, it means the world. You know, if it's your vibe, subscribe. In the next episode, we're going to be looking at getting the furling lines put on the boat and reefing lines. And there's something that Steven keeps talking about that's controversial about an outhaul, a preventer line, and something else I'm a little unsure on. So that's going to be interesting. Also might be going aloft in that episode as well. Following that is going to be getting some chart plotter electronics put onto the boat. I don't have a chart plotter, but I do have a little ICOM display, and it's going to give me depth and be an anemometer for the top, so I can get wind speed and depth at least. So that's going to be a huge upgrade. Looking forward to that. And with that said, I will see you guys here early next week on New to Boat Life. Stay tuned, and I'll see you guys next time.